to start out by showing a picture of my son and his puppy. This is my son Russell and his 6-month-old puppy Pierce. And this is about one of the hardest days of our lives. It was just a gray and dreary morning driving into work one day. It was like any other day, and I was riding along and listening to a book on CD. I just try to do that to relax in the morning and get ready for the day ahead. I was driving along and I got a cell phone call from my son. He's living on his own. He's 26 years old, and he just has had a new puppy. He's 6 months old about that time, and the first thing out of his mouth was, "Pierce can't move." I said, "What do you mean Pierce can't move?" And he said, "Well, I came down this morning and I opened his cage like I always do, and he didn't come out, so I just figured he was tired and needed some more rest, so I made his breakfast and set it down, and he's not getting up, and he can't get up." So I hung up with him and immediately called work and told him that I was going to be late, and changed directions and headed over to Russell's house. And I got there, I ran in the door and ran straight to the kennel, and I didn't even remember to shut the front door. I was just frantic. And Pierce could hear my footsteps as I came in the door, and he turned, and he didn't turn, his eyes turned to look at me, but his tail was wagging and his eyes were moving, and that's all that could move. And I just leaned over the kennel and was talking to him, and tears were pouring out of my eyes and raining down on him, and just trying to keep him calm, but trying to keep myself calm at the same time. And we talked it over and decided that what we needed to do was try to take him out of the kennel and see if we could help him. And we had a hard time because he's in the kennel and he's big. He's 6 months old, but he's a pit bull, so he's pretty good sized puppy. And we tried to pull him out and be as gentle as we could, and tried to hold him and help him stand. And when we would let go, his legs would just collapse. So we knew immediately we needed to get him to the vet, but we really didn't know where there was one. Russell was new to the area, and Pierce was just a puppy, so his vet that he had used was in, Norfolk, 30 miles away, and we really didn't want to drive that far. It was 7:30 in the morning and nothing really was open, but we took the bottom tray out of his kennel and laid him on that and carried that out to the car and tried to keep him as immobile as possible. He wasn't whining, he didn't seem like he was hurting at all, but he was scared, you could tell. He was shaking, so we got a blanket and put that around him, and he looked at you and just looked at you, and that, like, why is this happening? What's happening to me? And we wished we knew. So we just got in the car and started driving, and luckily somebody was looking out for us, because a few blocks away we found a vet and drove in, and Russell went in the reception area and explained to them what was happening. And so some assistants came out the back door and helped us carry him in, and the doctor came in immediately and looked him over and ran some basic function tests, poking him in the heel and seeing if he can feel it and that kind of thing, and ran some x-rays and just tried to make him as comfortable as possible until we got the results. And the results of the x-ray was that he had a broken neck, and we had no idea how that had happened, because the night before Russell had worked late, so a neighbor had come and fed him and put him in his kennel, and the last he talked to him, then everything was fine, and Pierce seemed fine. But there wasn't many choices that we had. We could send him to a veterinary hospital in another part of the state and fly him out there and that kind of thing, and I don't know how average people try to afford that kind of thing, because it wasn't anything that my son could afford, and I would have wanted to mortgage my house to do it, but it wasn't very practical. So when we talked about it and thought about it, we had to do what was right for Pierce, and on the off chance that he would be better and the pain that he had to go through to get there, Russell made the only decision that he could, and knowing that that decision was based on financial need or the cost just made it that much harder. It wasn't the only determining factor, but it was a major one, and it didn't feel right that it should have been part of the decision even. But looking into Russell's eyes was one of the hardest things I've been through. He was 26 years old and looking at putting down his pet that he dearly loved, and Pierce was a member of the family. He was rambunctious, he was loving, he was loyal, and just knowing that this was it was extremely difficult. So we said our goodbyes, and Russell said his goodbyes to Pierce, but he couldn't stay till the end. He just didn't feel like he could do it. So I stayed with Pierce while the doctor came in, and the doctor gave me the time that I needed to say goodbye myself, and he injected him, and I watched him slowly go to sleep, and I looked down at him one last time, and my nose was running, my eyes were, I was crying the entire time, and I just didn't know where I was really, and I stayed with him a little bit longer, and then I walked out and wiped my nose and walked out into the bright lights and wasn't even sure where I was, and knew it was a day I wouldn't soon forget.